Okay, so this is video number 3 of my spooky, ghosty stories from my friends. I'm going to start right off with one of my oldest friends. We've been friends since we were in elementary school. Ashley says, "To me, some of the experiences I've had at my parents' house aren't spooky. It's more things shutting off for no reason. Sounds of footsteps when everyone was downstairs, cool spots in the middle of summer, in a house that doesn't have air conditioning. I'd say the most interesting is one my mom experienced. She saw a girl in white go up our stairs and head towards my room. Thinking she'd scared me, she apologized and asked what happened to my white nightgown. I then told her that I don't own any nightgowns and had on my black shorts and a t-shirt, but I did get cold that night and it was in the middle of summer." So it's like kind of a fun little beginning story. For me, I had an uncle visit me in my dreams a couple of nights after he was in a tragic accident, telling me everything was okay and another family member was visited and knew. As I was telling my mom about the dream, there were other members of family I've never met and more to the dream. My great-grandma called and my mom told her about my dream. She starts crying, saying her son, my uncle, visited her, apologizing, and that she and the family will be okay. He's okay and is where he belongs, and informed her that he was visiting another family member. I was the only one that saw him other than my great-grandma. I do believe my parents' house is haunted, and it's a young girl. I also think it's circled around my room or my sister's old room. Lights shutting off while the TV was still on, or vice versa. After we all moved out, my parents would hear footsteps in that room, and my dad once told it to be quiet. He couldn't hear the TV, and it stopped. Some things I can't explain, but it didn't happen very often. I'd speak to her when she shut things off and say, "Okay, I'll go to sleep." That was her home life. There's another experience here, which is really fun too. But I think it's a really nice spot to stop and talk about how her family didn't really make a big deal out of it. They just would talk to whoever it was, and say, please stop shutting things off, and it would, which is kind of cool. She says, "Michelle and I went to Hales Bar Dam. Ghost Hunters filmed there once and did a tour." They went there and did a tour. "There was a spot where our guide said children were known to play while the adults worked the dam. I felt a cold spot by my right hand, like someone holding my hand. Michelle was recording on her phone and noticed a small orb by that hand. She saw me look down and asked if I was okay, so I told her about the cold spot. And she asked if it was my right hand because I looked at it and I said, yeah. Now, it was in a dam that no longer has electricity, and it was so hot and humid that night. We like to think it's an orb and not a bug because it wasn't moving all over the place, and two, how I felt at that moment." Thank you very much, Ashley. I feel like we need to catch up on more of our ghost stories. There's another one from Thomas. I don't hear from him very often either, so it was really exciting when he sent me a message. He says, "The first one is a personal experience. I think I was about 14 or 15 at the time. I was camping with the Boy Scouts. Corny, I know. The campsite was by a lake, and one night it was just pitch black with just moonlight. I was just sitting by the lake, and I could see straight across to the other side. All of a sudden, I could see this white figure of a lady in a dress, just slowly walking or strolling, if you will, by the edge of the lake. It was hard to tell, but I would say she might have been 5'4" or 5'5", skinny. I would say I saw her walking for about 5 minutes, until one of my buddies came by and distracted me. I looked back while asking if he saw her, and she was gone. So that's my experience, but I have a couple of other stories. I had a friend of the family who used to be sort of a paranormal investigator for the police when he lived in Ohio and in Chicago. In Ohio, he lived in a house that was haunted by the ghost of a teenage girl. The ghost would move things periodically just to joke around. It also, I guess, liked him, but didn't like his wife. I guess it was sort of jealous. It would occasionally throw things like cups and plates at her. The same guy, while living in Chicago, did a paranormal investigation in a really old building that apparently was used by gangsters during the 20s. He got reports of blood seeping from the walls on a certain day of the year each year, and then it would disappear. He and a colleague stayed overnight in the basement of the building on that day. Sure enough, a red substance came out of the wall. They took samples and had them lab tested. Sure enough, it turned out to be human blood. They did research into the building. They found that there was a guy who was killed for cheating in a poker game. One of the other poker players caught him, got mad, and slammed him against the thick wall of the basement. His head cracked open, covering the wall and floor with blood. Now blood appears on that same day ever since, which is kind of horrific. But also, this job of being a paranormal investigator for the cops sounds really awesome, if harrowing. This next one's from my friend Dan. He says, so this was about a year ago. This is really recent. I'm giving my son a bath around 5:30. I expect my wife home from work soon, and I'm kneeling in front of the bathtub with my back to the open door. My son is playing and doing various splashing-related tasks. Then he stops and looks over my shoulder, and he waves and says, "Hi." I turn around and no one is there, but I have the feeling that someone is. I think that my wife must be home and I didn't hear her come in. I get up and look around, but don't see her anywhere. I give a timid hello to my empty apartment and then slowly return back to the tub, shaking it off. But then my son repeats the wave and says, "Hi." I get up and I look again to the same effect. I have a pretty strong creep factor at this point, so we finish up in the bath and go about our evening. My wife comes home about a half hour later. My great-grandmother used to live in the apartment where I live now, and she died when I was about 8. I like to think that she was checking in on her family and wanted to meet her great-great-grandson, which is a really, really sweet story. Also kind of strange, what was the little boy saying hi to? But that's always the question. I'm going to find another one of Sammy's because she's got dozens of them. Okay. She says, so this is one of the most recent stories. It was close to the end of a roommate's stay with my boyfriend and I. It had been for fucking ever, and I was stressed beyond belief. My boyfriend is at work, and the roommate is sitting on the couch, and his cat, Kaylee, who is now my cat, Gwen, is lying on the floor in the living room. I had just emptied a bottle of juice and put the cat back on. I turned around to grab some things before I threw it away. My boyfriend just texted me that he's on his way home, and I'm venting my frustrations and asking when the roommate is leaving. I loved his cat, but I was tired of him. I turned back around and reached for the bottle. This plastic bottle shoots about a foot in the air and plops back down. It jumps from side to side on its bottom edges until it settles back down as if nothing has happened. And I'm standing there like, this is new. Now I have one that can move things. I text my boyfriend, "Hey sweetie, I think either something is passing through or a place is haunted or I'm magic." What? Because I had told him all about the old house before. So he's freaked out and worried about my well-being and asking if I want to stay anywhere else tonight. And I'm like, no, it's not bad. It's really not. It's just a random act. I like the fact that she's so used to it that she just calls it a random act, which is just pretty exciting. And you can hear roommates and friends singing because it's the only time I had to do this. I'm going to tell another one of my stories. It's probably one of the creepiest ones. So, my sister is actually my cousin, and she used to live in this really old farmhouse in Michigan, which actually looked a lot like the house they used for the movies for the Amityville Horror House, though the Amityville Horror House doesn't actually look anything like that house. I'm a buff for ghost things. So yeah, this house was really creepy in general, especially the basement, which I feel is often creepy. But it was just this big old farmhouse. It was drafty and creaky and whatever. And every time I visited, I would stay the night, a couple of nights sometimes, depending on the season, summer, whatever. Every time I visited, she would tell me about the weird things that had been happening to her. And I honestly don't remember most of her stories because I guess I kind of didn't want to. I wanted to act like they didn't happen or that they weren't going to be a big deal or something, or like she made it all up, or it was just like some fun like talking. I didn't really kind of want to act like they were real, but she told me that she had this feeling that there was somebody there, some weird things happened, I'm not sure what, and so she was really uncomfortable being alone in her bedroom, and she would hear voices through the vent that went down to the basement when her parents were in a room like down a hallway. And granted, there could be some connection, but she was pretty sure it wasn't her parents because it didn't really sound like them. It sounded like older and gruffer. So apparently I do remember some. So one night, I'm staying over and we're listening to the Michael Jackson tape that she had of my histories, and the song Smile comes on, which I feel is kind of creepy anyway. But then it keeps turning off. Like it'll just like stop playing in the middle of the song. We'll listen to the entire tape, get to that song, and it'll just stop playing at a different point every time in the middle of the song. And so she tells me that it's the guy who she thinks stays in her brother's room. So we hang out and keep talking about weird, creepy things. And of course, getting ourselves psyched up. And eventually we go to bed. And I get up in the middle of the night because I absolutely have to use the bathroom, cannot wait for morning, need to go now. And I believe I convinced her to go with me, but I'm not positive. Either way, once you leave her bedroom, you're like faced right with the hallway that leads straight to the bathroom on the right and the stairs on the left. But also on the right, before you get to the bathroom, is this like long, thin, totally useless hallway that gets to her brother's room. And he always leaves his door open because he's young and he leaves his door open. So we're walking towards the bathroom, and I glance to the right, and I swear, like a light flickered or something, or it was just the way I saw it, but I saw a man. I saw like a fairly tall, broad-shouldered, late 30s, early 40s man, wearing one of those like fleece hats with the flaps on the side, and I want to say it was a green or red plaid, I can't remember because it was like so dark, and maybe overalls, or maybe it was like a hunting jacket that was in plaid. Anyway, I just remember seeing this man, and I remember like the essence of plaid and like the hunting person. And granted, it could have been my imagination, but it has been something that has stuck with me for years. Like, I distinctly get this like mental feel, this image, like an association with it, and it's more than just a passing fancy or a passing imagination creation. So that really freaked me out. And of course, we went to the bathroom and went back to bed, and everything was fine. Nothing else happened that night. But I do remember another time in the house, because it was on a farm, it was a big old farmhouse, where I was walking through the dining room by the dining room table, and I glanced out one of the big windows on the side, and I swear I saw the same man standing by the tree. It was like a really overcast, weird day, and there's a big tree like fairly close outside the yard, or outside the window, next to the house, and I swear I saw the same man. So theoretically, that's the man that, I don't know, lived there. I felt like he was really not pleased with people being there. But I suppose if I were dead and didn't know to go somewhere else, and there were people just sitting around my house, I'd be pretty pissed too. So that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off there. There's only a few stories left, so maybe 1 or 2 more videos, and that'll be the end unless somebody else wants to give me more. I highly suggest you do that. Thanks very much.